Okay, 2.6 is function notation and linear functions. Okay, so when we have a function that's defined with a rule and it's x and y, we replace y with f of x. Okay, so y and f of x are very interchangeable, which is just something we do, and we call it a function. And we talked about like that function machine, and we put something in, we have that f of x, and we get something out. Okay, so we call it f of x, okay, or f at x, okay? So for example, if we have like y equals 3x minus 5, we can name this function f and write the following: f of x equals 3x minus 5. So f of x is just another name for the dependent variable y. So we evaluate a function at different values of x by substituting x values from the domain into the function. Okay, so all that's saying is if we have a value, we plug it in for x at the function. So it says let f of x equal 6x minus 2. Find the value of the function f for each value of x. Okay, so this says find x equals negative 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in negative 3 for x, and we get negative 18 minus 2, so we get negative 20. Okay, now if you don't know how to put that in a calculator, remember you have to hit 1, then 8, then that plus minus button that changes it negative, okay? Then subtract 2, okay? And that should give you negative 20. So you gotta like make it negative afterwards. All right, so let's plug in 0. So 6 times 0 minus 2 gives me 0 minus 2, which is negative 2. So again, calculator 0, then minus, then 2. Okay? All right, let's do another one. So they don't usually tell us like x is negative 3. They actually say f of negative 3. So they put the negative 3 in the x spot, okay? Now this is the same thing as saying let x equal negative 3, okay? So the same thing as let x equal negative 3. So we're going to plug it in. Now, this equation is what we're plugging into. If there's already a negative outside the x squared, that's like a negative 1, okay? So you have to be careful. We're not going to put that negative inside. It's actually going to stay outside. We're going to multiply that later. Okay? All right. So here we go. We're going to square first. So negative 3 squared is 9 minus 9 plus 3. So I've got negative 9 minus 9 plus 3. Negative 18 plus 3 gives me negative 15. So again, your calculator, you would do 1, then 8, then the plus minus button, okay, and then plus 3, okay? Now, this says f of t. We're going to plug in t for x, okay? So we're letting x equal t. It's a little weird, but it's okay. So, still got that negative 1 out there. Plug in t plus 3 times t plus 3. So we're going to square t. That's just t squared. So I got negative 1 times t squared plus 3t plus 3. So negative t squared plus 3t plus 3. And that's my final answer for f of t. Okay? Now, let's throw something a little bit more complicated in there. Let's throw a binomial in there, so 2 terms, okay? So I'm going to put g of t plus 2. So sometimes we can actually like do this and say equals, so 5t plus 2 minus 1. Now, we don't want to stop here. We want to distribute. So 5t plus 10 minus 1, combine like terms, 5t plus 9. So that's our g of t plus 2. Okay? All right. Now, this one, they're going to give us 2 different types. So we're finding f of 2 for each function, but they kind of gave us one's a rule and one's a coordinate. So if we look at the first one, we've got 2, 6 as a pair and 4, 2 as a pair. They want us to find f of 2. Well, remember, f of 2 is saying x equals 2. What's y? Okay, so if we look here, when x is 2, what's y? Well, it's 6. So we would say f of 2 equals 6. Okay, so 6 is our answer. Now, B says f of x equals negative x squared. Well, they gave us a rule. Okay, this is a rule. And so they want us to find f of 2. So again, x is 2, what's y? But we're going to plug in 2 this time. So negative, remember the negative stays outside because it's like a negative 1. 2 squared, negative 1 times 4 gives me negative 4. Okay, and that's our answer. Okay. All right, now we're going to use a graph to find the following functions. Okay, so here we go. I want to find f of negative 2. So remember this says x is negative 2. What's y? Okay, so I'm going to go to negative 2 of x, and I want y. So I'm going to go up to the line and then find the y value. It's 3. So the answer is f of negative 2 is going to equal 3. Okay, the next one says find f of 2. So again, that's x is 2. What's y? So if I go 2 up to 1, y is 1. So f of 2 is 1. Now this one says for what value of x is f of x 0? They switched it on us. So this is saying y is 0. What's x? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to 0. Okay, and they're saying y is 0. What's x? Well, we went up, or we could have went down when we did x, but this time we're going to go left or right. So the function in this case is right. It's 4. Okay, so when y is 0, x is 4. Okay, so we're going to write an equation using function notation. So solve the equation for y, then we replace y with f of x. So here we go. Write the equation using function notation, then find f of 1. So first step, we got to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract x squared. Then divide by negative 4. And I get y equals, and that's going to be 1/4 x squared minus 3/4. Okay? And then we're going to replace it with f of x. So f of x equals 1/4 x squared minus 3/4. So that's the function notation. Then they want us to find f of 1. So that means x equals 1. What's y? So here we go. F of 1 equals 1/4 times 1 squared minus 3/4. 1 squared is 1. 1/4 times 1 is 1/4. Get negative 2/4. That's my answer. Okay, so that's what f of 1 equals. All right, graph the function, give the domain and range. All right, so first of all, let's just look at this function. It doesn't have a fraction. It doesn't have a square root. So the domain is all real numbers are negative infinity to infinity. If the domain is negative infinity to infinity, then the range is negative infinity to infinity. Now, graphing this function, you're like, wait, it's not in any form. But remember, f of x is the same as y. So this is the same as y equals negative half x plus 3. So our b is where we begin. It's 3. So I'm going to go to the y-axis at 3. And then I go down 1, right 2, up 1, left 2. And there's my line. There's my function. Okay, so graphing a function in slope-intercept form is the same as graphing in regular slope-intercept form. Okay. All right, this one, graph the function, give the domain and range. Okay, so this one's a little different. Okay, let's do our domain and range afterwards because it's a little different. So this is y equals negative 1.5. So this is a Hoy. Okay, so we're going to go to negative 1.5, and it's going to be just like this. Okay, so our domain, we can put any x value we want in it. Okay, so because it doesn't have a fraction, doesn't have a square root, so negative infinity to infinity. But our range, what y values are we going to get out? Well, no matter what we put in there, we're always going to get negative 1.5. Okay, so that's different with that. All right, that is 2/6.